Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending on what side of the pond you're on. And welcome to an extra special edition of Across the Pitch. My name is Phil Kennedy, and I'm here today with my co-host Tony Robinson, where we have a guest from the Accrington Stanley Ladies Team. Head coach Bryn Tracey has joined us today, and he's going to tell us all about the program that first started back in 2017. We're really excited to have him on the show. Welcome to the show, Bryn. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Much appreciated.
Yeah, it's Tony, and I'm looking forward to learning about the ladies and the girls team, because I got to be honest, I don't know a lot about the setup, and I think this is exciting for us on Across the Pitch, because this is something that's long overdue from our end to get involved and promote the ladies side. So I'm looking forward to it. So ready when you are, Phil. Let's get into this. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, I mean, the ladies team founded back in 2017, and then you took over as head coach back in July of 2020. So first thing I wanted to ask you about is it's a fairly new program, less than 5 years old. So what are some of the challenges that you face with such a new club?
Challenges usually revolve around things like finances when you first start up and start things like that off the pitch. There's not that much money in female football over here in this country at the minute, so the further down the pyramid you go, the less money there is. So that's one of the key challenges off the pitch. And on the pitch, obviously, it's just a case of trying to be competitive. Trying to do the best you can, trying to bring the right players in. It's not always about sometimes having the best players. It's sometimes about having the best characters to get the best team morale and things like that. So that's a couple of the challenges when you first start up that you face. But everything's going quite well now. Like you say, it's been under 5 years, but everything's going quite well now. So it is quite good.
It sounds like you have the same mind frame that John Coleman does, where the character of the player and having people that will fit into the squad is equally or perhaps even more important than the talent.
Yeah, I mean, striking the balance is the key thing, but definitely having the right characters, doing your homework, doing your research, doing the player references, and making sure that what you're bringing into the club fits the ethos, fits the philosophy, and fits everything that you're trying to do. So it's definitely very, very, very important that you get the right character into the football club.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, one other thing we wanted to ask you about is the home park is the Sports Hub on Thornyholm Road in Accrington with a 3G pitch. Tell us a bit about the facilities there.
Yeah, it was a purpose-built £2.2 million complex that was completed and opened in 2019. The exterior was opened in 2019, so the 3G pitch was usable, but the actual rest of the complex, the whole sports hub itself and the grass pitches, they were opened. The hub was opened the week that COVID broke, so literally it opened up. And then we had the lockdown, so that wasn't usable. Well, it was usable on and off, but it was very unfortunate that it opened the week that the lockdown happened. And then the grass pitches have only actually just opened this year because we spent about £150,000 renovating the grass pitches. So it's taken a little bit of time from 2019 when the 3D opened. But the facilities are absolutely fantastic. There's 2 classrooms that we use for the match analysis, but the community trust are also obviously that's their main base, and they deliver the BTECs and the degree programs. We've got a 3G pitch. We've got the 2 grass 11v11 grass pitches. We also have 9v9 pitches as well, 7v7 pitches. And at the minute, the men's team are actually training on the bottom grass pitch during the day. So the facilities are absolutely fantastic. The best in the area, to be honest. Really, really good.
And this is all through the Accrington Stanley Community Trust, I believe, is it, Bryn?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. We're connected to the Accrington Stanley Community Trust. Yeah.
So, as far as your boss, where John Coleman has Andy Holt. Do you go through the community trust yourself?
Yeah, I deal with the community trust. We also have our own board of committee members because the aim moving forward is to become more standalone. Because obviously the club's growing now, so it's getting to the stage where it needs to be more standalone. So I would answer now mainly to our committee that we have at the football club. So we're on the verge at the minute of moving more in a standalone direction. So we'll still fall under the community trust umbrella in the fact that we'll work side by side with them. We'll still use the facilities, and still in the same instance that we'll still have to link to the men and things like that. So yeah, at the minute we're just on the verge of moving the club into an even bigger direction than where it was.
And I know on one of your videos, and I got to give you a shout out to your the social media that we'll talk about later on as well.
Yeah.
And the questions where they had you answer several questions. One of the things I wanted to ask you was your experience and what does it take to get into this position? And how did you get into it? It was, I guess, what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I mean, I started off in junior football. So I started off in the girls' game in junior football. And then from there, I was lucky that I coached some very good players and I developed them very well. And we went on and we won lots of things and the players developed really well. We won national tournaments. At that point, we were the only, at under 15 level, we were the only under 15s girls team in the whole of the country that played in 2 leagues in the same season and won them both. So then from there, I then moved into open age football with those young players. So the young players that are in open age football start very young if they're mentally and technically good enough. We'll start them at 16. It's very different to the men's game. So I moved into the men's game there. I was at Bolton Wanderers Ladies. I headed up the development section there. And then the football club approached me to come in and take over the women's section and try and grow it. And that was, as you said earlier, that was July of 2020 last year. We're going strong and we're moving in a really good direction from there.
You came in with, I see the gentleman's name is Dean Porter, correct?
Yeah.
And what's his role and responsibilities?
So Dean was my assistant coach. He's since stepped away now, and I have another assistant coach in there with me, John Harrison, who also heads up the reserve and development section as well for Accrington Stanley Ladies. So yeah, Dean came in with me last summer. Unfortunately, for personal reasons, he had to step away, which was a shame. Hopefully, we may see him back in the very near future. Hopefully, but that's what Dean's role was at the club until he stepped away.
Can you give us the names and roles of other members of your staff so we can give those people a shout out, Bryn?
Yep. Of course, we've got Rebecca Domain. She does a lot of she's one of the reserve team players, but she also does a lot of the team secretary stuff behind the scenes. We've got John Harrison, who heads up the reserve section, also acts as an assistant coach for me. We've got Tiara Reyes. She is a first team player, but she's also doing a lot of the social media stuff for us as well. They're pretty much the main people. We've got Lauren Fisher, who's our physio. They're pretty much the main people just within our small group that we have in the women's section at the moment.
And I believe Rebecca's related to the photographer Neil Broadhurst, if I'm correct on that. Am I right?
I think that's right, yeah. I don't want to give any false information out, but I think that's right, yeah.
Yeah, I think Neil's her uncle, I think, from what I
believe so. Yeah, I believe so.
Anyway, sorry, that's a little sidetrack. No, I appreciate it because I didn't realize, and I don't know if our listeners would realize the number of people that are behind the scenes. It's not just one, and I think it's good to recognize and acknowledge those the roles and responsibility of those people behind that support you in your job.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got the committee members as well that are absolutely fantastic. Kate McKenzie, Kelly Groves, Karen Turner. They're all, even though they're off the field, they're still just as important. They play vital roles in everything that we do. Without them, the club doesn't move forward. It's all good and well moving forward on the pitch. We've got to move forward off the pitch as well, which we're doing really well at the minute.
Speaking of on the pitch, we did have some questions we wanted to ask about the squad and tactics and things like that. So to start off with, tell us about the squad tactically. What formation do you prefer? Is there a specific style of play that you would compare to?
We try to be on the front foot. We try to be attacking. We like to get the ball out from the back as much as we can and keep the ball down and be patient and not force it forward. We've just been promoted, so it's very difficult going from county to regional football. We found it very difficult, but the philosophy's still the same. We're just trying to adapt within it. So formations, we'd probably start off in a 4-5-1. When we've got the ball, very quickly try to get into a 2-3-5. Sometimes that's a 2-5-3. Sometimes it can be a 3-4-3. Depending on where we are in the game, sometimes we may even go straight into a 3-4-3, coming back into a 4-5-1 when we've not got the ball and things like that. So the formation changes through the game depending on the scenario that you've got in front of you. If we're on top, we're having a lot of the ball, the opposition's usually pinned in, and we're in a 2-3-5, so we can be very attack-minded. The minute we lose the ball, we'll drop into a 4-5-1, drop a little bit deeper, and try to be hard to break down in a bank of 5 in the middle and a bank of 4 across the back. But it does depend. It depends on the game. We played Preston North End a couple of weeks ago. It was a really good game to watch, and I think we went through 5 different formations just in the second half, just trying to tweak things and change things and just try. We lost the game 4-3, unfortunately, and we're just trying to get back into it, get that 4-4, but we just couldn't manage to do it. So it just depends on the game. But certainly from a playing philosophy, it's very much about playing out from the back. We set up in a specific way. There is a science behind it, the way we set up. There's certain shapes and certain things that we do in our half of the pitch, and we've got the ball to try and dictate play and try and manipulate the opposition, pull them out of position, manipulate how they're set up against us. Like I say, it's been a lot more difficult since we've had the promotion because we're at a higher level. So, but everything still tries to stay. You try to keep the philosophy the same, just try and tweak it to adapt as you're going along.
So it sounds like you're making a lot of adjustments throughout the match, and there's not any one specific formation that you're setting the whole time.
Yeah. I think it's important. The two main formations are when we've got the ball, can we try and get into a 2-3-5? In possession, that may change. When we've not got the ball, make sure we're in a 4-5-1. But the formations within the game as it's going on, depending on what's happening in front of you, will change all the time.
So now I looked through some of the results from your matches this season, and I've seen that Millie Jardine looks to be your top scorer and was Player of the Month for September. I also saw she's only 16 years old, so she's got to have a bright future. And tell us a little bit about her and what she brings to the squad.
Yeah, Millie's played for me since she was about 13. She's an incredible little player. She can play a number of positions. She pretty much started off in junior football playing wide on the right wing, and I very quickly realised that she could play as a forward, she could play as a 10, she could play as a central midfielder, but I really wanted to have a look at her at central midfield. But she was so young, she just wanted to play wide, so I just kind of left her there. And then once we got to sort of 16 and we come out of that last lockdown and she was going to be coming into open age football, I pretty much said to her, I see you as a centre midfielder, attacking centre midfielder, and that's where I want to have a look here. So we've moved her in there pre-season. She's been absolutely fantastic. She's a great player. She's got an absolutely fantastic attitude, very committed, and no doubt whatsoever she can go and play at a really high level. If we don't go to the heights that she can get to, she could certainly play at a really good level. I think fantastic player.
Fantastic. Now, I see that Emily Hughes looks to be your team captain. Tell us about what she brings to the squad and why did you choose her to be captain?
Yeah, Hughes is. Believe this, this goes to show how young our squad is. At 19, she's the second oldest in the. Tell a lie, she's now the third oldest because we've just promoted the reserves team captain into the first team, and she's 31, so she gives us a lot more experience and gives us something that we don't have in the younger players. But other than that, Hughes at 19 up until then was the second oldest player. Tiara Ray has been the oldest at 20, so we're very, very young. So a lot of people forget just how young we are. But Hughes is fantastic again. She's strong. She's technically very good. She understands the game. She can read it really well. She's calm. And she just gets the players going, just pitch side before the game in the huddle. Just a good player, a good captain, and a good person to have around the club.
Bryn, are they mostly local from the Hindburn area, or do some players come in from out of the area?
We have them over the last couple of seasons that I've been in Open Edge football. I've had them come from all over the north of England, and I've had them come from Penrith in Cumbria. At the minute, we've got players from Manchester, Warrington, Liverpool, Blackpool, Burnley, Preston. There's not actually that many from Accrington. There's a few local girls in the reserve side that are from the Accrington and Hindburn area, but the players come from pretty much all over the northwest of England, which is, to be fair, it's testament to what we're doing at the club. That people want to travel away from where they are based, and they want to play for the club and B, buy into what it is that I'm trying to do on the pitch and we're trying to do as a club off the pitch as well. So it is testament to the football club that they come from all over the northwest.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. That you're absolutely bang on, because that's quite some traveling for players to do coming, especially from Penrith and places like that.
It says a lot about the program.
Yeah, and I think it's great. You've got all these. It's not just this is one of the things I wanted to clear up from my own point of view. From Bryn, Phil, is that the myth that maybe the girls are just local, when obviously the program is such a good program that you're attracting quality players from the northwest.
Yeah, what's really interesting actually is we're playing at regional level, so there's 4 between us and the Women's Super League, and it's classed as Tier 5 and Tier 6, the regional league. And we've got players that travel from all over the northwest of England to come and play for us at that level. You've got teams in the league above, your Fleetwoods, even Blackpool in our leagues. The majority of their players are local to that area. They're local to the Fylde area, to the Blackpool area. The amount of travel that our players do to get to training and get to games, you would see that in sort of Tier 3 and Tier 4, the National Premier League and the National Division 1 leagues, where the players travel a little bit more. And I'd even go so far as to say that we've got players that travel further to come and play for us than some of the teams that play in Tier 3 and Tier 4, the Premier League and National League Division 1. So it's definitely testament to what we're doing, which is a good sign that we're on the right track.
Yeah, I think this is a good point, really, for us to get a sort of a breakdown from you as to the makeup of the different levels. You've mentioned county and then nationally, regionally, and we know the Super League, because that actually is getting is on the television over here in Canada. It's getting a television contract. But how is the makeup of the divisions in ladies football, and where do you guys sit in that pyramid system?
Yeah, so we're classed as Tier 6. Like I said, there's 4 divisions between us and WSL. So if we work our way from our league upwards, you've got Regional Division 1, then you've got Regional Prem, and then you've got National League Division 1, and then you've got the National Premier League, then you've got the Women's Championship. After that, you've got WSL. So there's 4 between us. So below us, you've got all the county divisions across the whole of the country. And those county divisions can have numerous amounts of teams and leagues in them, and they all go through that. The county leagues are sort of like Tier 7 in the pyramid. And then it depends on which county your club plays in, as opposed to, because you can have, for example, the Lancashire County League, they've got They've got 3 open age leagues, whereas the Greater Manchester League have got 4 or 5. Cheshire have 4. Merseyside only have 2. So it depends where you are in the country. Obviously, the further south you go, the more county leagues there are, so the more tiers there are. So it's quite, what's the word? It's from the outside, it's quite confusing. It takes a while to kind of grasp how it's set up. So it looks confusing from the outside, but once you grasp how it's set up, it is actually quite straightforward. It's just the difference between each tier, as we found moving from county to regional football, the differences are huge each time. So we've stepped up and we're finding it a lot more of a challenge, which is good. We're young and that's what we want. But over pre-season, we played teams from the tier above us, which was our regional Premier League. And even though it's just one jump up, again, the golfing class was very, very big and you could see it. So the further up you go, the harder it is. And obviously you've got WSL and the Championship that are just, poles apart compared to everywhere else. But the gap is closing, and the quality's getting. If you look at, for example, Tier 3, so 2 above where we are, which is the National Premier League, there was a game between Nottingham Forest women and Derby County women a few weeks ago that was played at the men's ground, the City Ground over in Nottingham, and this is a Premier League Tier 3 game, which is just sort of 2 above us, and there was 4,500 on for that. That might not sound a lot when you compare it to sports in America, but if you consider that in them leagues usually they'd struggle to hit the hundreds, and that game attracted 4,500, and you can go into the Championship and WSL and the crowds are similar. So it just goes to show how much the women's game is growing, and it's starting to peter down the system when Nottingham Forest and Derby, who were in the Premier League, the Championship's above them, and then it's WSL. They're getting 4,500, and there were teams in WSL that weekend getting the same amount of crowds or just slightly under. So it's already grown. The WSL has already grown massively over the summer, so that the crowd's going from hundreds to thousands at all the grounds around the country in WSL now. So it's only going to get even bigger. And now the crowds are starting to peter down into some of the lower leagues, especially the teams sort of Nottingham Forest, Derby County, and things like that. So it's really starting to. You can start to see it even watching the WSL games on TV. Even if I'm an Everton season ticket holder with the men, I go watching the women when I can. And I was at Goodison a few weeks ago to watch Everton and Manchester City women, and there were 6,000 on. And it's just completely different to what it was last season. It's louder. Even when you flick it on TV now and you watch it, the crowds everywhere at WSL, it's just getting bigger and it's getting better all the time. So it's really starting to snowball. And I think the WSL sponsorship deal that they have with Barclays, the Barclaycard, whichever it is that's sponsoring, I think it's a £10 million deal they've got. It's made a massive amount of difference already, because as you're saying, if the games are on in Canada, and the games are on mainstream cable TV and mainstream normal TV over either BBC One and Sky, it's obviously growing massively. And I think it helps having these players now from all over the world coming into the women's game and realising that over here in WSL is pretty much the place to be.
Well, I know. So TV actually, and going back in the old days, because I know the Bob Lord comes to mind, because he thought TV would ruin fans attending football matches, and you think that the exposure on the television is actually contributing to the success of the ladies' game?
Without a shadow of a doubt. First and foremost, the World Cups, the European Championships, they put the women's game now so far out there that once they come back to domestic football, especially in this country, especially with how England have done in tournaments, and I know the US have been sort of massive in women's football over the last goodness knows how many years. So they get big crowds and the standard's really good over there in America. That's what's starting to happen in this country now. So it comes from your World Cups and your European Championships. That then peters into domestic football when they come back home, and the crowds are starting to swell. So without a shadow of a doubt, the more money that gets put in, the bigger the exposure is, because the more bargaining tools they've got with the TV companies. And it's the old what they call the nexus, isn't it? Sport needs TV and media. TV and media need sport. Without both of them together, they don't exist. And so the more money that comes in as sponsorship, the more that these players get out there. So when they go to World Cups and they go to European Championships, it becomes global. There's no doubt you cannot hide behind the fact that the sponsorship deals now in women's football have helped it become bigger and help push it out to a wider audience worldwide.
I think one of the things that's popular women's soccer football here in Canada has been very very successful, and I think the peak was when they won the gold medal at the Olympics, and when you look at the fact that Canada basically is known for its winter sports, in the rankings they're actually ranked ahead of England, I believe, which goes to show you that when you get participation and publicity for a sport, it can really take off, and I think that's what's happened in Canada. And a lot of our players go to Europe and to the States to play because I don't think there's anything really higher at the professional level. But certainly Canada is developing some players that are playing in Europe. But I think it's tremendous. What you said about how the sponsorship and the crowds are growing, and it seems to be right now. When you look at the bell curve, it's definitely on the way up, isn't it?
Without a shadow of a doubt, and it's snowballing very rapidly as well. And I can only see it getting bigger and bigger. We've got the European Championships over here next summer. That'll be absolutely huge. Some of the stadiums that they're using, Old Trafford, and places like Anfield, places like that, it'll be absolutely massive. Especially if England can put in a good performance, and they've got every chance. We know there's other strong teams such as like France and Germany and Holland, obviously, but if England can have a good performance, it'll ramp it up even more, without a shadow of a doubt.
I think one of the things Tony's leaving out is that Canada's secret success is the other teams don't know what to do because the ball is just frozen to the ground. But
you're getting that news with hockey, Phil, and.
But one of the things that we wanted to ask you about here, so with the success that you've had so far, what are some of the short and long-term goals that you have for the club, and where would you like to see the club 3 years from now?
Yeah, we've had a lot of these conversations at the club recently because obviously we're moving in a bigger direction with a newer committee, and we're starting to grow quite rapidly. For now, without a shadow of a doubt, on the pitch, we've just got to stay at regional level where we are now, because that's a big ask with the squad that we've got. We've got mainly a squad of 17, and 8 of those players are actually only 16. With other than Louise, who's coming from the reserves at 31, the oldest up until then was 20. So we've just got to stay in at regional level because there's a lot of experienced, talented sides with players that have dropped down from higher leagues. So short term on the pitch, let's just stay at regional level. Once we've got our teeth sunk into that and we're comfortable, then we can start to look at how we push on. Off the pitch and on the pitch over the next few years, we want to try and get the brand out there as much as possible, start getting more people down to watch the games and see how far we can take the club. It's all about heading towards the national level. And it's on the horizon, but it's a few years away. And if we can just carry on going the way we're going, we'll improve year on year on year, and everything off the pitch, if that improves year on year as well. Hopefully, we can get to national league level. Once you're at national league level, it's a whole different ball game. You've got to kind of have a look around and stop and think, right, how are we going to move forward from here? So that's kind of the aims over the next few years.
So who are some of the clubs that you're playing against now in the conference that you're in now? And, do you have any rivals or anything like that you've gotten?
The teams that we play against at the moment are Blackpool women. They've got a team in our league. We've got Preston North End women. They're in our league. If I had to pick a rivalry, it'd be difficult because we've only just come into the league. The girls would probably see, Chorley have got a team in there, Carlisle United have got a teams in there, Penrith, Workington, teams like that. Picking rivals is difficult because we've only just gone into that. If we had to pick one, I think if the girls were sat here picking a rival, they'd probably say Chorley or Preston, just simply because of the demographics and the geography of where we are, those local derbies against those types of sides. But me personally, it's all about each game as it comes each week. Can we get a performance? Are the players developing? Even better, can we get some points? And that's what it's about at the minute. But I think the players would probably say Preston North End or Chorley simply because they're just local rivals.
One of the things that is, and I mentioned before about the Canadian women's team, they had success with an Englishman up from the Northeast by the name of John Hardman. And he's now taken over the men's program and having success with them. And you've gone from coaching boys and now to the girls' ladies team. Is there a difference in coaching between the two? And if so, what was sort of jumps out at you the most as a positive difference?
If you compare really young ages, girls and boys, sort of like aged 4, 5, 6, 7, without a shadow of a doubt, girls are just technically better than boys, believe it or not, by far just much technically better. They're just naturally gifted at that young age. The problem in the past has been there's not been enough girls. So you've not seen that the natural gifts and the technical elements that they've got. That will change in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years because more and more girls are now starting to play football. And eventually there'll be as many girls as there will be boys. And the girls, if they're technically better at 4, 5, 6, 7 years of age than the boys, then it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out where the women's game could be in 20 years' time. That's one difference in the young age groups. Going into the more teenage groups, girls obviously have a lot. I mean, both boys and girls have a lot of emotions to battle and overcome. But girls certainly take things a lot more personal. They're a lot more aware of the physical bodies and how they look. The drop-off rates, participation rates in girls, not just in football but in sport, from the age of 14 upwards is very high. It's getting better, but it's very high because they're very aware of how they're changing scientifically, biologically. So that's some of the differences at junior level. When you start to get into older levels and open age, I find the girls, the boys are probably a lot more sort of like, they can have an argument, they can have a problem on the pitch, they come off the pitch and it's all forgotten. In girls, in women's football, you've got to treat them a little bit differently. And they're a little bit more sensitive. That doesn't mean to say that there's not strong characters about and things like that, but they're a lot more mentally fragile. So there's a lot more kind of having to get your arm around some of them that are mentally fragile. There are players in the women's game who can take whatever you throw them and they just bounce back. But there are subtle differences between the two games. When it comes to coaching players on the training ground, I tend to find girls pick things up a lot more than boys, and girls are a lot more like sponges. So you'll go into the women's game and they just kind of, once you've got their attention and you can get them to listen, you pick things up a lot quicker and they just absorb things more.
That's a well-stated observation. And I was wondering if that's what you were going to get at, because that's from my daughter played hockey and the coaches used to say that the girls are just like sponges, and you hit the nail on the head with that one. So, do you ever see your team someday being able to play at the WAM?
Yeah, there are discussions all the time about that very thing. I guess the biggest issue is the pitch. That I was on the pitch pre-season when I was down there on the ground, and it was impeccable, absolutely amazing, really good surface. But the problem is if you get the men playing on it one week and you get the women playing on it another week, it doesn't hold up as well through the winter, and that poses problems then for the men moving, in their game. So there are talks all the time, and there is dialogue all the time about us playing in the stadium every now and then. Certainly our FA Cup games, we'd like to get played in the stadium so we can try and get the people in. But you've got to be realistic, and unless it's a 3 or a 4G synthetic surface, it's not going to hold up through the winter months. And it's a tough one like that. I mean, ideally long term, we talked about sort of over the next sort of 3 years or so, but ideally long term, further down the line, I've thrown it out there to our football club. Why can't we have our own ground? Why can't we're Accrington Stanley Women? We're Accrington's women's football team. Why can't we aspire to have our own ground that we play in? Why can't we be bigger than the men? You only get a few thousand on every week. It's a massive name, but why can't we aspire to have our own ground and move in that direction? And we've got people at the top of the club, new people now at the top of the club that are coming in on the committee. And they've turned around to me and said, "Why can't we? Until you rule it out and it's absolutely impossible, why not aim high? Aim to go as far as you can go."
Yeah, you keep thinking outside the box, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, especially over here in the U.S. with the success of the ladies team at the World Cup, I would say that maybe not necessarily that the women's game is more popular than the men's game over here, but the women's game certainly, definitely, at least on the international level, just gets a huge amount of coverage over here in the States. And with the popularity of the women's game in the U.S., would coaching on this side of the pond be something you'd ever look into or consider?
Yeah, absolutely. I love the sporting landscape over there in the States. I think it's absolutely phenomenal when you see college football teams playing in front of thousands of people. I think it's fantastic. I know soccer's a little bit different over there, but it's just the whole sporting landscape in the US. It's something I look at and think, it would be amazing one day to maybe look at going and doing that. And the scholarship system as well. I mean, I've got 2 daughters who had the opportunity a little bit further on down the line of going on scholarships over there to the US. They don't quite want to do it at the minute. They're not ready to leave home, but I just think it's phenomenal over there. So it is something definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, if the opportunity arose and it was right later on down the line, it's something I would look at without a doubt.
That's a great thing that you mentioned with the college and the scholarship system, because there are a number of players from England or just Europe in general that play over here in the States that we've talked to that maybe played in the USL Championship or the MLS. They basically said their reason for coming over here in the first place is they were able to get a scholarship, have their university paid for, and that's just something that's not offered anywhere else.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely incredible. And again, I talked about football over there, but actual soccer, when you see some of the college games, I watch some of the college games online and stuff like that, and some of them, depending on the level that they're playing at, whether it's the higher up rather than the bottom couple of divisions, the turnout with the fans is actually fantastic, and the quality is very good. So it's it's very different over there in the States, isn't it, as opposed to over here. And I think a lot of the education system over there and everything, it's just it's fantastic. There's a massive emphasis put on sport, and for me, coming from a sports science background, I'm a big believer that there should be a massive emphasis put on sport. We talk about English, maths, and science. Well, sport's just as important for mental health and physical health. So there should be a bigger emphasis put on it. So it's very good to see what happens over there in the US.
Well, I think too, Phil, you'd probably agree in the States with the university system is that in lots of areas and states, they're the big sport in the area. And
oh yeah, absolutely. Especially like with college American football, if you get to places like Alabama, I mean they're as big as any pro team out there.
Yeah.
But
well, that leads me. There's actually a question that we got from Neil Hurst, and he said he wanted me to ask because he said like he wanted to know from you, Bryn, if there was any future stars that like a Rachel Brown, who spent her youth career at Stanley's Ladies and went on to play for England in goals. She also played, as we mentioned, you mentioned Alabama. She played in the States at Alabama, the Crimson Tide, and I believe at Pittsburgh Panthers. So is there anybody that you think could follow in her footsteps?
There is a player that I watched come through junior football when I was in junior football with my team. She played for Burnley Girls. She's now at Manchester United. Or has she just gone to Manchester City? She'll be 17, 18 now. She's called Alyssa May Ahern. She was a player that I watched. She would have been 13, 14, and she was playing for Lancashire Schools with one of my daughters. And I'll never forget. I'd seen her playing, and I walked up to her dad. She'd been 13, and I just said to her dad, I said, she's going to play for England at some point. And he just laughed it off anyway. Cut a long story short, she's 17, 18 now, and she's in the England camps, and she's in and around the England youth squads. She's a very, very good player. She's definitely one that straight away springs to mind that I would like to think will go all the way. Alyssa May Ahern, yeah.
I mean, something like that could get, a really good scholarship at a top university in the States and get an education and obviously and play lots of football and still have a professional career after that.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. Absolutely no doubt about it. Not only, naturally talented on the pitch and stuff like that, but just a really good attitude as well. So yeah, something like that would be absolutely fantastic for her, wouldn't it, really?
Now, we've talked a lot about the growth of the game and the importance of that. We've seen that you're using social media to promote the ladies squad, and we just wanted to know, how important have you found social media as a tool for promoting your team?
Social media is absolutely massive. I mean, you can get whatever you want out there in the blink of an eye. Our social media accounts are still relatively quite small because the club's been quite small, and it's, we've had the pandemic and everything else, so we've kind of lost nearly 2 years. So we're just in the process of just gradually trying to build that up. That will start to take off over the next couple of months with the new people that are involved with the club. But it's absolutely huge. It's a tool that we value massively. We're just starting to try and do a few more little bits and bats. We're on a small budget like a lot of women's teams, but without a doubt you can just get whatever you want to get out there and tailor it to suit certain people. So it's definitely a massively important tool.
What are the best places that folks can find you on social media? What are your Twitter, Facebook addresses, etc.?
If you just type in Accrington Stanley Girls and Ladies and Girls into Twitter, the handle will be ASG or ASG LFC, something like that. But just type in Accrington Stanley Ladies and Girls into Twitter and you'll find us. Same on Facebook and you'll find us. We've just started up an Instagram account not long ago, but certainly Twitter and Facebook are the two main ones at the moment.
Fantastic. We'll definitely include the Twitter handle in the post when we post out the show also.
Yeah, exactly. So I said exactly what I was going to say, Phil, is when we post the podcast, we'll make sure to copy them in. But I'll tell you one thing. And Phil, I don't know if you're going to agree with this or not, but I'm a lot smarter now than I was 45 minutes ago.
Absolutely. We've learned so much in this last hour.
Yeah, it's been great, Bryn. Your explanations and your comments and insights have just been brilliant. And I'm certainly going to cast more of an eye onto the ladies now that I know more about it and what you're doing and the success you're having. So And I like to, I just like to say, continued success and all the best with the future of the club, and long may you be there. And if you do get over the States, I'm sure Phil will find you and take you for a beer, won't you, Phil?
Absolutely. Pints on me for sure.
I will hold you to that. Absolutely.
Yeah. One thing we didn't ask you about is that we hear you're an Everton season ticket holder. Now we know John Coleman's a big Liverpool guy. So does that make for some good banter between you?
I suppose it could do, couldn't it? But I mean, at the end of the day, things are not very good for us Blues at the minute. To be fair, it's not looking great. It's a lot of improvement needed, really.
I'll tell you. I don't think you'd switch your allegiance. When I was in Accrington, I had a season tickets for Burnley, and so I think so. If I think we'd switch your bad luck for ours at the moment, Bryn.
Yeah, but I mean, let's see how the season pans out yet, because I actually think we could be in a relegation battle yet. That's a concern to me. So it might not be too long before we're free falling down the table and rubbing shoulders with you. To be fair. Well,
I don't you'll go down that far, but and I hope we come up where you're saying that. I'd just be happy to get to the bottom three at the moment, but. Anyway, it
just shows what a footy game football is, because I remember if we'd been talking 12 months ago, Burnley and Everton were both making some noise, and 12 months things just really can change. But like you said, I mean, there's a lot of season left, and I think that both of your clubs will find themselves in a better spot by the end of the year than they are now.
Touching wood here.
Hopefully so.
Thanks for your time, Bryn. It's been a real pleasure and a real treat. And thanks for filling us in on all this information. It's as I said, it's been a real experience, eye opener for me. And thanks for your time.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me. Much appreciated, guys. Thank you.
Well, absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Bryn. And we've just appreciated your time so much. And we definitely want to do it again in the future, catch up on your results. And we always like to finish up the show with an on Stanley on. So if everybody's ready, on 3, 1, 2, 3, on Stanley on.
On Stanley on.
Cheers, Bryn.
Cheers.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers.
Have a great evening.